1834, the Commonwealth of Virginia granted a charter to the Richmond, Fredericksburg, and Potomac Railroad to build a railroad line between Richmond and Washington. Railroads at that time were not thought of as being a competitive mode. They were thought of as being a connection to the ocean-going ships or barges. So the railroad was built. It started through Hanover County. The first 27 miles were built to the North Anna River, 1834, not 1836 rather. And there was a little place that was known for having a lot of game, a lot of trees, and it's present-day Ashland. And at that time, it was known as Andy's Shanty. And of course, they changed the name later to Ashland to honor Henry Clay, who was born in Hanover County. Randolph-Macon College eventually moved here, and the railroad created their own constituency by having the college here. The land they found a spring in the Ashland area, and it became a resort. So Hanover County had its first railroad. It was a single track railroad, not anything like you see today. The rails themselves were wooden pieces of wood, and they had iron straps on them, and they were in lengths of about 5-foot long straps of iron, and they tended to break, and there were a lot of derailments. The railroads weren't particularly safe back then. You could get on a train in Richmond and get to Ashland, and it was much faster than going by road, but going by carriage or certainly by horseback. But there was certainly the fear that one of those steel straps on top of the wooden rail would break, and you'd end up with an accident. The Civil War was the first railroad war. Armies have always found new ways of going out there and taking advantage of technology. And since Hanover County had two railroads, the Virginia Central Railroad as well as the R&P Railroad, they found ways of moving men and munitions, and it became vital. The Virginia Central especially connected the Shenandoah Valley. The troops of Stonewall Jackson were fed, and he moved his troops around using the Virginia Central Railroad to get to Richmond. The R&P Railroad was certainly instrumental. And any time that you've got two railroads or any railroad, and the military is going to take advantage of it, the other side is going to go out there and try and disrupt. Bridges were really the soft underbelly of a railroad, especially in a wartime. If you could knock out the bridge, that's fine. And what the troops back then would do, they would take the steel rails. By that time, they had gone to steel rails. They would take those and they would create a bonfire, and they would throw the steel rails on there, and the rails would become pliable, and you could twist them so that even if the other side came back and took the rails back, they probably couldn't use them. The aim of the Union was to capture Richmond. The Virginia Central, between Atlee and Doswell, was especially, for the most part, it stayed disrupted because the Union raiders would come in, the cavalry would come in, and they would simply take up the rails, burn them, and leave the place in a mess. But between the two, the Virginia Central and the R&P, the Confederacy supplied its armies, throughout the Civil War, although they had to keep coming out and rebuilding them.